Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. And it's been a while since I went to the movies and had a full on cry fest. And I don't want that to seem like that's a negative. That's a good thing because I really enjoy the emotional places that this movie goes. And I think those emotional places are important. But it's been a minute since I rolled as many tears as I had rolled in this movie. Like, there is a specific creator right now. His name is John Krasinski. And he seems to have a way with hitting things on the emotional spaces that just hit me dead center in the chest. And naturally, he had to make a movie like this and do the things that he does in this movie with a main character named B. We called my sister B. So I was locked in and emotionally attached to this thing really quickly. And it doesn't function, I think, the way some people might think it would function because it doesn't really have a traditional vibe. This is kind of like an abstract script to certain degrees, and all of it creates a tone to tell this story that I think makes it very unique, but also very, very impactful. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler free into John Krasinski's latest and my newest poster added to the collection. If I had to bring this out, look at how dope this print was. This They dropped this for the first 2 days. So if you went Thursday night, or if you were there for the Friday show, those were being handed out. And as soon as I got, I was like, oh, this is like, I thought it was gonna be like one of the normal posters, and then it was like a really creative, kind of animated print, or cartoonized print, which I thought was really dope. And having seen the movie, I just love all of these characters. But I digress. We want to talk about If, and I loved this movie. I have looked at the RT scores, and they are far lower than I would have expected, because of, I think, the way the script works. Some of the critiques that I have seen, there's too many ideas going on. It's unfocused. You know, you can't really, it doesn't have like a flow to it. So you kind of get jarred around. Like, these are all things that I understand, but I genuinely believe that all of the things that you might find odd with the structuring and script of this movie, I think are very, very pointed and specific decisions from John Krasinski, which creates a world that kind of feels dreamlike, right? Like, have you ever been in a dream and like you're just in the middle of something, and even in the dream, you're like, I feel like I missed a whole chapter, or I missed a couple pages somewhere. Like, dreams can be just kind of throw you right into it and go. And this is a movie that starts off, I think, in a very traditional way. But once you start to bring the ifs and Ryan Reynolds' character Cal into B's life, there is a little bit of an odd back and like you're just kind of watching these relationships going, well, that's, I feel like there should have been more questions or more this or more that. But what it does in keeping you off balance, I think, is create something, like I said, that feels very dreamlike, or very much like a story a kid might tell you, where you don't have all the details or not all the things that would make the story flow seamlessly like most movies or stories that you read. It's because things are missing. And those things are missing because that's how a kid's brain can work. And for me, the thesis statements that Krasinski has flowing through this movie, like for just a baseline set, B suffers a tragedy when she's like 5, and sets you up to have a kid who's going through really adult things at a very young age. And then when you flash up to, I believe she's 12 or 13 in this movie, when you get to that age of the character, the other person in her life is also going through something that's bringing on a lot of memories and a lot of PTSD, traumatic feelings. And it's one of these things where you end up with a character like B who will say in the movie, I'm not a kid. And that's the first thesis statement for me here, because I think we live in a generation of kids, specifically with COVID and other things that have happened in the last, 2 decades or so, where you have a lot of these young people acting and wanting to be adults way before they need to. The access that children have put them in a much more adult world than when I was a kid. And it's fun for me to watch my friends treat their kids the way that we were raised, right? Like, go outside, play with a stick and some dirt. We'll give you screen time here and there. But, like, it's one of these where I think my generation and Krasinski's generation are very locked into, like, kids, be a kid. And that's my first thesis statement in this, is like, it's okay to be a kid. But then the second thing, which is speaking to the adults for this movie, it's okay to be in touch with the parts of you that tie back to your childhood that you would consider being a kid. Like, it's okay to get in touch with your kid self, to get through really tough things, whether that's something emotionally tough, whether that's something stressful at work. And that is the vibe that you get through this whole movie. Like, that is, I think, the thesis statement. And then you're using the idea of trying to place imaginary friends that have been lost from their original kids, because those kids grew up, and the idea of that happening sooner and sooner. And watching Krasinski kind of play with all that stuff in the script, I just thought was really, really smart. And I think those are two very, very important messages, both for young people and for adults. Like, it is okay to be a kid, and it is okay to get in touch with the kid side of yourself if that helps you through things. Being, fun when it should be serious, something that Krasinski is a vibe you get from him in real life, is not a bad thing. And understanding that, I think, is really important, both for adults and for kids. And at this point in time, I think this movie is really poignant, because we've all been through a lot of things in the last 5 years. And sometimes tapping into that creativity, to that imaginative place, allows you to flourish. And that's what makes this movie soar for me. Like, that concept and how well delivered that concept is in the movie, I just think is genius. But like I said, the overall flow and structure really reminds me of, like, a kid trying to tell a story. And that, when you watch the movie and get to the end in full context, makes a lot of sense. And I said this to my buddy Nico, who I went to go see Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes with, which, if you want to see my review for that, you can see it right up there. But like I said to him going in, like, him and his fiance went last night, I was like, one, if Maddie is prone to be emotional the way I am, bring some tissues. I did not bring tissues, and I fully regretted that not too long into the movie. But I was like, the other thing, I was like, just be open. Like, it's not traditional storytelling. It's a little bit abstract in structure. But if you just are willing to be open to the idea and to go on this ride, I think there are really, really important and impactful things in this movie. And first thing I got from him, dude, that was an awesome movie. Like, really, really good. And I was like, yeah, and I think I would expect the audience score to be much higher than the critic score, because I think if you allow yourself to go on this ride, there is stuff that you can take away. And it is a family-friendly film. Like, this is something you can take younger kids to. Yes, there's some serious stuff in here. And yes, we're dealing with some adult or more adult-type things in this movie. But again, that statement of it's okay to be a kid, I think, is very important for kids to understand. And watching a character go through some serious stuff to learn that it's okay to be a kid, I just think is really, really important, and one that I hope families take their kids to, and that everybody really enjoys this, because there is a lot of fun to be had as well. I mean, the comedy in the movie is fantastic. Shouldn't be a shock. I mean, Jim Halpert knowing how to frickin' do comedy, of course he does. And I love getting to see Krasinski operate in a zone and a place that, like, is good for young kids, because he has young kids, but it's also more fun because the Quiet Place movies are fun in a different way, where this is, like, lighthearted, the humor is good, the characters are really, really accessible and understandable, and when it comes to the ifs themselves, I love the ones that we get in the movie, and the choices in and around those ifs and how they function, and all that stuff just really clicked. And then Krasinski also is a wonderful visual storyteller. I say this every time I talk about the Quiet Place movies, and I'll say it with If too. He just has a really good eye. Like, there's at least 4 or 5 times where, like, the camera is just set up in a way, and either it's right from go, you're like, damn, that was pretty, or it's set up in a way and then something moves and you're like, oh, look what you did, John. Like, his visual tricks, I think, are very, very enjoyable to someone who loves good cinematography. And there's a couple, like, there's one shot where the camera's just sitting and you're almost kind of like looking through. Great stuff. But in general, just the way that he moves through, how he utilizes the visual effects in the more if central places. Like at one point, B asks if it's magic, and Cal doesn't really answer that question. But there is a magical vibe to being around the ifs because of how the imagination can impact things. And when you do get those fun moments and enjoyable moments, this movie soars and you're lifted up with it, man. Like you just feel good. But it does allow itself to go to deeper places that I think are very, very important. And the way that Krasinski handles them, like the intimate moments, specifically between B and her dad in the movie, who is played by John Krasinski. I thought Krasinski was like one of the animated characters because the first time I had looked at IMDb, they didn't have like the names associated to anybody. But he does play her dad in the movie. And that relationship, one, feels very genuine, feels very natural. It honestly feels like Krasinski's just playing himself. But two, like the connection and the intimate moments between him and B, and when they're going through things, just really up the ante on the emotional side and really make that stuff hit in ways that are really, really strong. And then this cast, like, oh man, what a cast for just the ifs alone. Like when you look at the ifs, you've got Steve Carell voicing Blue, Phoebe Waller-Bridge voicing Blossom, Lou Gossett Jr. voicing Lewis. Then you have, get ready, Aquafina as Bubble, Emily Blunt as Unicorn, George Clooney as Spaceman, Bradley Cooper as Ice, Matt Damon as Flower, Bill Hader as Banana, Richard Jenkins as Art Teacher, Keegan-Michael Key as Slime, Blake Lively as Octopus, as a cat that wears an octopus like hat. It's hysterical. Sebastian Maniscalco, Magician Mouse, Christopher Maloney, Cosmo, who is one of my favorite ifs. He's like a detective, and it's just a hat and a trench coat and two white eyes on like a black, like it's just black between here. He's so friggin' like classic Chris Maloney stuff. He's so good. Matthew Rhys plays the ghost. Sam Rockwell, who is also phenomenal as the guardian dog. He's like a superhero dog. I love Rockwell every time he pops up in something, but he's tremendous. Maya Rudolph as Alligator, Amy Schumer as Gummy Bear, Allison Seeger as Viola, Jon Stewart as Robot, and then my favorite, Brad Pitt as Keith. And now there's one of two things going on here with the Brad Pitt casting. Because if you've watched the trailers, Keith is invisible. It's the if that Ryan Reynolds trips over and goes, who would have a invisible imaginary friend, right? And when you look at IMDb, all of the people I named have the character name and then voice because they're not necessarily the ones that are doing the physical performance. Keith does not speak. So Brad Pitt is just listed as Keith, no voice. And there's two things going on here. Last time Last time Brad Pitt and Ryan Reynolds were in a movie together, Brad Pitt was invisible in Deadpool 2. So it could just be a gag cast, like, oh, Keith is this invisible. If we keep mentioning, we have to assign somebody to it. Let's give Brad Pitt the credit because that's a funny inside joke. The other possibility, which I don't think is what happened, but in the reality that I want to be real, Brad Pitt showed up to set for one day, wore a green suit. Maybe he didn't even wear a green suit, and he just laid on the ground for Reynolds to trip over. If that comes out as that's what happened, like that'd be the first thing I asked Brad Pitt if I was on like a junket for a different movie. I'd just be like, real quick, were you ever on set or is that like an inside gag? I just think it's genius. But everybody that's doing work here on the voice side is tremendous. Now, what I will say, as I was having this conversation with my buddy Nico, as much as I love a good celeb cast list, it also is like, oh man, like there's so many talented voice actors out there that like a movie like this, if you would have used your top end voice talent, could have given those people the opportunity to become more household friendly names. That's my only like when you get the celeb cast list. But when you got someone like Krasinski, who's got a lot of ties in Hollywood and a lot of friends in Hollywood that are actors, same with Ryan Reynolds, and you can get a group of this that are all friendly or friends with someone on set, yeah, who doesn't want to work with their friends and family? So I get it, and everybody that is here does great work, specifically Steve Carell. and Phoebe Waller-Bridge. While I think they're the most recognizable voices because we get them the most, I do think they're both playing with their voices in little ways. You get a little Gru vibe sometimes from Carell, but I think he does develop something that's unique to Blue, and works really, really well. But for me, this movie hinges pretty much on this little girl, Cailey Fleming, the girl who plays B. She is tremendous. Now, I think I was doing the math. I think she was like either 15, 16, or 17, somewhere in that range when they made the movie. But, for playing a 12, 13-year-old kid, you buy it. You know what I mean? And she definitely looks like she could fit that age, and that is a plus because she's definitely got a little bit more seasoning to her acting chops, and you need that for this character. Like the ability to play like an adult because of the things that B has gone through in her own life is really important to have somebody who can come off more seasoned, a little bit more mature than a natural 12 or 13-year-old. And like I said, the whole movie hinges on her. She carries this whole thing. Like, yes, Ryan Reynolds is there. Yes, we get Krasinski sometimes. And you also have Fiona Shaw, who plays her grandma. Like, really great supporting pieces for her. But she is the one that carries this movie. When the emotional beats hit, it's because of the things that she is doing. And I was so invested in her right from the get-go. Like, B as a character with what they set up, and then when they deliver you Fleming for the first time in the movie, like, I was just immediately drawn in. And when you start to see how Krasinski's setting things up to move forward, everything she's doing is really fascinating. And as it's one of these where if you had a knock, I kind of figured some things out about the movie pretty early on. But I also think that's why I enjoyed the movie so much, because I saw where Krasinski was going, and the methodology and how he got there through B's story really, really connected with me. And like I said, I was so impressed with Cailey Fleming. And then to have her opposite Ryan Reynolds, genius move, Krasinski. Like, you could have had her opposite you the whole time, but like I said, I think Krasinski fits perfectly as the dad, and what he's asked to do, it's just perfect for his vibe. And again, much like Quiet Place 2, allows him to be behind the camera rather than in front of the camera. And Reynolds, I mean, he's a superstar. He's a phenomenal leading man. And as somebody who has young kids, plays the role of Cal perfectly. Like, this is a support piece for B. When B is stuck or in a jam, Cal is someone that she's going to turn to. And how Reynolds accepts all that and takes that on, it just has such a genuine feel to it. And, we talked about how Gosling, the other Ryan, and Emily Blunt had their kids on set a bunch during Fall Guy. You would have to imagine that Reynolds and Blake Lively, who's one of the voices, M. Blunt and Krasinski would have also had their kids on set for this one, which would have been a lot of fun. Like, now I'm just sitting there going like, man, Emily Blunt and Krasinski's kids, they've got really dope celebrity friends now, right? Like the kids of the celebs that they're gonna grow up with, like that. I hope they all do something creative. I'd love to see, like, whatever they want to do. But like, if they're in the creative sphere, I'd love to see all of them doing things that could lead to them working together. Like, how cool would that be? Anyway, I digress. But that's a vibe that you feel in this. Like, this feels like a set that would have been very family friendly, very welcoming, and you can tell that both Reynolds and Fleming had room to breathe and maneuver with what they're doing in their performance and how it flows, and just how Krasinski kind of reins everybody in is wonderful. And then, as I mentioned, Fiona Shaw also in this movie, she's stellar, always is. I really enjoyed what they got with her and the grandmother. And then there is this one kid played by Alan Kim named Benjamin, who's in the hospital. Every time he is in the movie, it's fantastic. The interactions he has with B are fantastic. I can't say fantastic enough, apparently. But yeah, no, him and Fleming have great chemistry, and I love all of their scenes. And she's like a great endpoint, or he's a great endpoint for some of the stuff that she's doing in the trying to place imaginary friends or ifs. So he's great. Liza Colon, Zayas, Bobby Moynihan are in here. They're very, very good. Moynihan in particular has like a small role, but one that really hit for me, and it helps with that thesis statement that Krasinski kind of has in this one. Then B's mom was played by Catherine Daddario, which I learned today is Alexandra Daddario's sister. Not a lot for her to do, but now that's another name and face I'm going to keep an eye on, because I really do love everything that you get from Alexandra. A big Daddario fan, so like more Daddarios the better. And then Audrey Hoffman, she plays the young version of B. 3 and 5 is what it's listed as. Very, very impactful. Like for a little kid, not a lot to do, just kind of be there, but it gets you attached to the character in a way that when Cailey Fleming shows up, you're ready to just go. But yeah, once again, like no shock, Krasinski has a phenomenal cast here. Everybody delivers, and just in general, I think everything about this movie just about worked for me. Yes, it's a little abstract, and yes, there has its moments that aren't as strong as others, but on the overall, the impact of the movie is, I think, what Krasinski was going for, and that landed 100% for me. So let's get the C Maniacs up. Give this one a score. Like I said, I think Krasinski's methodology and structure to this movie, while a little abstract, a little not the norm, I think really suits the story that he's telling and the way that it operates, giving this kind of like dream-like, almost like kid telling a story vibe, worked for me. And I think if you're seeing it through that lens and not seeing it like, man, the structure seems all over the place. Oh, there's too many ideas. Things are bumping into each other. It's like, no, just sit back, man. Be open. Go for the ride. And it hits on the emotional levels, on the comedy levels, on the just lighthearted levels. Like there's just moments where you're smiling, makes you feel good, even if it gets you emotional. And the emotional beats serve a really, really legit purpose in getting to kids and letting them know it's okay to be a kid while you're a kid. No need to rush to being an adult. And for you adults, it is okay to tap into the kid part of yourself when you're going through shit, because there is an element to that imagination, to just the way kids can absorb things. It helps you get through stuff. And that is more important than anything else anyone's got to say or think about the movie. I think if you go in with that open mind and knowing that's where you're heading, even if it's a journey that's a little different than things you've seen in the past, this is a really special movie. It has really, really wonderful moments. And yeah, I just dug all of the characters, like all of the stuff with the ifs I thought was great. The B story and how that ties in, and just how that can be the vehicle for this, whole idea of like accepting the kid part of yourself, was just beautiful to watch on screen. And at the end of the day, I laughed, I smiled, I cried. I had a real full-fledged movie-going experience. 4 out of 5 C Maniacs for the C-Man. If was just exactly what I was looking for, even if it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I'm okay with that type of shift when you get what Krasinski gives us here. So my dude is another person now who goes into that category as 3 for 3 behind the camera. Granted, 2 of them are in the same franchise, so I'll be very interested to see the next thing Krasinski does that's not Quiet Place or If. I guess you could go back and do more ifs. But the next thing he does, I'd be really interested to see, and then we could kind of call it like a real 3 for 3. But 3 films in, 3 films that have hit quite well for me, and this one, it's got like just the way it spoke to me. It's got a little even more special place than the last 2 Quiet Place movies. So I loved If, but the question is, what about you? Like I said, the critics have been a little harsh in some of the reviews that I read, and it is a little bit more split, where it's like some people are getting what I'm getting, and other people are kind of bumping against the structure and the story and how Krasinski is doing this. Like everybody is noting that what Krasinski is attempting to do or doing has valuable elements to it and valuable meaning, but it's not hitting for everyone. I get it, but I certainly hope that it hits for you guys on the audience side. So I want to know, did it hit for you? Did it connect, or did you feel like it was a little uneven and like, yeah, there are really nice elements and nice moments, but the movie as a cohesive whole could have been stronger? And if you did dig it, what was working? What got you to connect with this thing in a way where you're like, dude, exactly what I was hoping for tonight? Who are your favorite ifs? Like I said, I think Blue is an easy one because he's the biggest and it's Carell. But I'm a huge fan right now of Guardian Dog. Big fan. Sam Rockwell, great. And Cosmo, Christopher Maloney. 2 of my favorite characters. So who are your favorite ifs? If you've seen it, keep it spoiler free. What worked, what didn't, good, bad, indifferent on If. put it down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions. You want to be here for whatever comes next. I believe, Furiosa is this week. You want to be here for that? Anything else we got going on? You want to show a little love and support to the old C-Man? Well, come join C-Maniac Nation. Super easy. Jump over there, hit that subscribe, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, for the C-Man Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace.
Hey, what's up, C-Maniac Nation? Winter Ken here, where we grow out our roots and our beard, letting you know that you can see some new C-Man videos right up here and right down here. And if you want all those videos and show that man a little love and support, come join C-Maniac Nation right over there, and the C-Man will catch you on the next one.